So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming here today, in this wonderful day, to talk about Robert's works. I'm very happy to be here and to see this exhibition of Robert, which is really amazing and in such a prestigious place. We've known each other for a few years now, always sort of sharing our passion about photography. Robert has actually started his career in photography not so long ago. And yet he's already had 2 prestigious exhibitions here. He's been shown internationally, and he has 2 galleries, one in London and one in Manchester. So I think it would be nice to start at the beginning. So how did it all started for you, your path into photography?
The whole photography journey started was with, my dad was a mechanical engineer, and I think he liked cameras more than he liked photographing things. And we always had a house full of cameras, and he had a Leica M3, beautiful, beautiful old camera. And when I was young, knee-high to a grasshopper, didn't take photographs with it. I used to hold it and just wind it on and click. And I loved the feel of just winding it on and clicking it. I'd hold it up to my eye and focus, didn't take photographs with it. But very quickly, my dad bought me a Kodak Instamatic camera, got it at home. And you take these strange little cassettes, which you put your cassette in. I can't remember how many photographs you got on it. But I went from using the most beautiful mechanical camera, the Leica M3, to using this Kodak Instamatic, and it was so unbelievably plasticky and awful. But I started, and I was just taking photographs. I quickly realised that with this thing, I could capture moments in time. And it was magical, to a young boy. But my dad, a mechanical engineer, we always used to go to Alton Park. And so I used to take photographs of cars and car engines. And I remember, I've still got every negative I've taken. And I'm sure one day someone will go through, and you said, didn't you? Someone will, one day, I hope, if things go well, that someone will go through and archive everything that I've done. I'm not going to start now with thousands of negatives. But yeah, that's how it started, simply with my dad and just simply holding and clicking a camera. And it grew from there.
And so going back to the exhibition upstairs, I was just wondering, how did you choose the pictures that sort of introduce us to your work? Because when I see them, they're actually very different from the rest of your production. So I'm talking about these very beautiful, large construction sites, which have no people in it. They're just a moment frozen in time, in the quiet of the night. And yeah, I just wondered, why did you choose them as the first thing we see?
Well, Manchester, an exhibition in Manchester, if you've got, because these pictures are from my previous exhibition here that was messed around with COVID. And these were 3 just iconic Manchester scenes. We've got Deansgate Square. It's all about new construction. Deansgate Square from left to right, we've got the cranes taken from the Mancunian Way. And we've got the underground at Central Car Park. Each of those pictures, if you live in Manchester, you go, yes, know that, know that, know that. And there were no people in them, though. That's what you said, isn't it? It was a time of my life, though, when my focus was on one person. My mum was in a nursing home, and I've cared for her for years and years. And I actually just wanted to go out and photograph things and scenes rather than people. I wanted, because if you're photographing the cranes in Manchester, I've already in my mind's eye, I know what the picture's going to be. And I didn't have to deal with anything, didn't have to deal with any people. I would just go there with a large format camera, set it up, take the picture and go home. And that was my time, not dealing with people. And the architecturally as well, that Deansgate Square picture, it was more because you mentioned that I came into photography quite late. It was as well using a 4x5 camera, an 8x10 camera. It was more a rite of passage in that when people come up to you and say, "Oh, you're a photographer, are you?" You go, "Yeah. Have you used an 8x10" camera, and have you used one massive, complicated old things?" I said, "Yes, I have," and you can talk to them about it. You know, you've not just shot digitally all your life, but it was that moment in time where I was in my life that I wanted to just focus on the photograph, because you knew exactly what you wanted it to be. You'd go out there, you'd shoot it if the conditions were right. Because in the cranes picture, if we go upstairs afterwards, the cranes picture, I thought I wanted Manchester, red lights everywhere on the top of cranes. And from a distance, I live in Warrington. As you're driving into Manchester, the sky was pink. And I thought, that's what I want in my picture. So I had to wait until the conditions were right as well. It was shot 2018 between Christmas and New Year, so the cranes didn't move. They were all in the same position all the time. And I thought I wanted it to be misty and very foggy and this lovely pink sky. But I'd wake up in Warrington, it'd be misty in Warrington, drive to Manchester, it'd be clear. So when I actually arrived in Manchester and it was misty, I got to the point where I take the picture and I went, this is rubbish. Because it was cloudy, and the red lights are so bright on the top of those cranes that there was just no contrast in the picture. It was just a pink mush. So I had to go back 10 times to get the conditions right to take that picture. But in the end, it worked. And yeah, you go there, 4x5, 8x10" camera, side by side, shooting it. And it was just my time. That's what it was. Yeah. Basically, that's what it was. Yeah. No people.
Which is probably a similar feeling to the one you had when you shot your seascapes, or at least the one what we feel when we see them, probably. So I'm talking about, going forward in the exhibition, there's this group of really beautiful seascapes, which are taken from the same spot at different times of the day, which is actually a technique that reminds me of the Impressionist painters and their study of light. And interestingly, I saw that Robert has also picked a quote by Degas to illustrate them. So there's interestingly as well, these pictures are taken in Blackpool, which is, a place that's usually been the subject of some sort of quite ungenerous social critique images. I'm thinking, of course, Martin Parr, but even Cartier-Bresson before him. Whereas with Robert, we get this beautiful, serene, and quite refreshing take.
Yeah, I love photographing the seascapes now because I'm sure we talk about it, but the focus of the whole focus of my work now is people. And if you're photographing people all the time, I'm going to put one of the pictures on. If you're photographing people all the time, what you want is a little bit of time when you can just sit and you can be yourself. And this is a seascape at Blackpool, and you go there for the day. You're limited by tide, conditions, where the sun is, and I just go and plonk myself at Blackpool, and whatever happens in front of me, I'll photograph it. And these sort of things come out, they look rubbish on the screen, better upstairs. But when you're photographing people all the time, it's so nice. Just go, right, today I'm going to sit on my own in Blackpool and photograph what's in front of me. Not what's behind me, what's in front of me. And it's a lovely thing to do. I love people watching anyway. This documentary photography is about being so focused on people that when you're at Blackpool, even if I don't get any photographs, I've spent a day in a crazy place with some fabulous people. All the noise is going off behind me. It's definitely Blackpool. But people that don't know they're Blackpool show these at Unseen Amsterdam, a big photography fair in Amsterdam. And I had to explain to people what Blackpool was, because people want to know where are they taken. And I said, I see the sun sets, I want to face west. And I explained to them what Blackpool was in the Victorian area and how, wakes weeks and things like that people used to. They'd shut all the mills here and everyone would go to the seaside towns all over the country for a week or two. And they said they were amazing places, but now they're just very, very run down. And that's where the quote comes from. That art is not what you see, it's what you make others see. If you tell them that it's a seascape, go, it's a seascape, yeah, it's a seascape in Blackpool, they go, I don't see, oh, right, okay. I have actually got a video of when I took this actual photograph to show the colours are in the sky, because people don't believe it. Don't edit the colours, nothing. All I do is make sure the horizon's level, and I've spent a day on my own in the peace and quiet of my mind. Mm.
Yeah, so you mentioned now your heart is in the social photography, in the street photography. That what you love the most is to photograph people. Yes. And what do you like about it? What's
about photographing people?
Yeah, what drives you? You know,
there's photographing people is so hard. Grayson Perry said in his 2013 Reef lectures, I know someone at the back's heard this, but he said that the problem with photography, because he's talking all about all art, and he said the problem with photography is we live in a world now where bad photography rains down on us like sewage from the sky, and we see a million bad photographs of ourselves. You yourself said no one's ever taken a good photograph of me. And I see that, but there is nothing in the world, absolutely nothing, like taking a photograph of somebody that they like. Because people are so used to the disappointment of having photographs taken of themselves that when they see a good photograph of themselves, they go, oh, I look okay, don't I? They go, yes, just because now you're so used to seeing hundreds of bad photographs. Mm-hmm.
So when I actually see your social photography, social documentary, what I always pick on is that people are quite isolated in their scenes. It's never about like a choral action or people being in a group. It's always about their single stories and their sort of individuality coming through, and a touch of loneliness as well in them, around them.
I think that with London, you live in London. The thing with London is people are just so focused on getting from A to B that most people are just so inside themselves. And nowadays, they're either on the phone or they've got AirPods in, they've got headphones on, and they're just so focused, don't want to interact. And I find that very, very lonely. I really, really do. But when I'm out shooting documentary photography, you're open to anything and everything, absolutely anything that's happening on the streets. But you'll see somebody that interests you, and be that somebody just walking along on their own. It's very rarely any couples, are there, in the pictures. I just focus in on that one person, and then if a situation develops where I can take the photograph, I will. If it doesn't, I won't. There's one picture of it's upstairs. It's Pound Please Man. I think you might mention, he was across at Piccadilly Circus. Love photographing in Piccadilly Circus. It's crazy. Get away with murder there. But he's over the road from me, and I see him, and I've eyed him up. I'll put the picture on. I've eyed him up as being a potential person to photograph. And, is it on here? I don't think it's on here. No, it's not. And he sees that I've noticed him. And you can see him going, he's going to take my bloody picture. But if you see the picture, he's dressed in a crazy suit with two big dogs walking through the centre of Piccadilly Circus. And you can't get away with that. But that's what happens. I'll see somebody and I go, you're interesting to me. And it might be him because he's dressed strangely and he's got his two dogs. I say strangely, dress how you want. But don't expect to not be singled out of a crowd, because everyone's walking with their faces in their phones now. But yeah, I do. I focus on that one person, the individual, and then I forget that picture, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah. And I think this also sort of found a natural progression into your dancer series, you know, the sort of really working with one person at a time and really building sort of a relationship with them and a special interaction and sort of
the dancers, I'll put a dancer picture, I'll put my favourite dancer picture up here. She was absolutely stunning, she was.
And interestingly enough, that's a project that was born here. The very first shooting happened in the reading room upstairs.
Yes. You know, the reading room upstairs, big circular room, I got in touch with people photograph dancers in ballerinas, particularly in gaudy places with lots of graffiti, and they figure they're just putting beauty next to something that's grungy. You see that everywhere. I want to photograph dancers in beautiful places, and I knew the reading room upstairs. And they came to me and they said, I said, can I photograph a ballerina upstairs? And they went, okay, yes. I didn't have to explain much for some reason. And they said, right, you can't obviously photograph when someone's in, when it's open to the public. They said, so if you come in at 8 o'clock, opens at 9 o'clock, do what you want. And they left me in there with 2 dancers, a lot of lighting kit, and they said, with his number, with his mobile number, said, let me know when you're done. And I photographed a ballerina in there. That's actually why I'm here, because they saw the pictures, went, oh, these are great. Do you know we do exhibitions here? If you propose an exhibition, so propose an exhibition, and 6 years later, you know, it's all up there. With dancers, but these are all Matthew Bourne's New Adventures. They were doing Romeo and Juliet at the Lowry. Mm-hmm. And I got in touch with them. I said, photograph dancers, any of you fancy being photographed? And they all went, yeah. This woman here, Monique, she was playing Juliet, actually, at the Lowry. I thought, I'll not mither her. But then, if you don't ask, you don't get. So messaged her and said, I've been given your number. Are you interested in being photographed? She said, yes, okay. So I picked her up, drove her to my studio in Warrington. I photographed her, and I'm driving her back at 12 o'clock up the M62. She needs to be back at the Lowry for 12:30 for class, so that she can then be on stage and do Juliet, but actually play the principal part. So I'm driving back up the M62 going, now's not the time for a puncture. You know, now's not the time for the M62 to be blocked. But with these pictures, I gave them carte blanche to do what they wanted. They weren't posed. They were just given a mark on the floor to not stray too far from. Shot them on film, and they just did what they wanted. I said, if you feel rubbish today, there's a picture on there's a picture on the left of a chap when he said, my partner's thinking about leaving me and I'm thinking of moving to London. And he was not in a good place. And I said, I'm not going to ask you to perform here. I just want you to do what you want. Put on some music that suits how you feel and just move to it and I'll photograph you. And the pictures that come out are fabulous. There is, I say I want to see beauty, grace, fragility, power. I want to see all these things in one picture. That's the only quote that's the only direction I give them. Do what you want. And I love the results, they love the results. Please get dancers, and if you can take a photograph of a dancer that they like, you've won, I think.
No, yeah, it's beautiful. And I also find it very interesting that you basically told them, lose yourself, and that actually you photographed this series with a Hasselblad, which actually requires that you change the roll every 12 pictures.
Yep.
So I was wondering, how did that work, within the rhythm of the shoot, which of course, it must have been quite a rupture.
It was, and of course you've only got 12 photographs, so they're moving in front of you, and you're going, do I photograph this, don't I photograph it? Do I, don't I? Because once you've got through 12 pictures, you've got to stop. And if they're looking good, you don't want to stop. But if they're looking good, you want to photograph them. So the opposite of a digital, where you can just shoot and shoot and shoot. But what I did was I just let them do what they want. And then if they did something interesting in those 12 photographs that I've taken, I go back and say, just do that again, would you? Think about that. I wanted to photograph 2 of them together. And I got this particular picture here. This again was This is Harry and Karumi. Again, Matthew Bourne's New Adventures. Oh, it's not come up. No one. Is it? No. Oh, it's upstairs anyway. There's a couple upstairs, and they were fabulous. He's the one that went, I said, you put your hands in a hair, and you've messed the hair up. I said, just do that for the next 12, in this session now, just do that for a bit. And they did. And that's the only direction I gave them, the only direction.
Mm. So you mentioned before you've worked with the 4x5, the medium format, and the large format. So like the large works upstairs are taken with an 8x10 camera, which is obviously a very cumbersome object to drag around the city. So somehow we gather that analog photography and shooting on film is very important to you and sort of adds to the craft around it.
Yes.
Tell us, what do you think analog brings to the table? Why do you choose analog over digital?
Well, I don't shoot film because of any hipster sort of connotations. I'm not that person that shoots film. If the picture would look better shot digitally, I'll photograph it digitally. But film, there's something so special about film. Plus, if you photograph some people that generally photograph things with a digital camera, they then take their pictures, they'll go back, put it in the software and do their best to make it look like film. And so I think, well, if you can be bothered, shoot film in the first place, because you get the pictures back, you develop them and you clean them and you put them on. I scan them so we can see them on computer screen. But then you go, right, I'll just edit this now, and you go, no, that's it. Because I've chosen what film I want to use so that the pictures look like I want them to look. I decide. The big photograph of the cranes upstairs, I knew what film I had to shoot it on because I knew what I wanted the picture to look like. And the documentary stuff, I shoot on one particular stock of film because I know that's what I want the pictures to look like. And one of the best things about shooting film, though, because everyone wants to know about AI now, and is that if I've taken this picture, I entered the picture of Monique into a competition, and it's great when someone goes, did you take that picture? Did you really take that picture now? Because people ask that. Is that really a picture? And you go, yes, there's the negative. It's actually there. And they go, oh, right, you've actually got it. AI, there's none of that. It's simple as that. I shoot film because I love the aesthetic, especially the documentary stuff. Yeah. Because when you see the pictures, sometimes digital's too perfect. And when you shoot film, you look as though you feel the texture of roads better. You see more in people's faces. And it's just the aesthetic that I like.
Yeah, but after we said all of this in praise of film, there is actually one series that you shot digitally, and that is perhaps your most personal series. And it's also the one that gave the title to the exhibition. So I'm talking about The Sky Above Her, which is also my favorite of the entire show. I find that it's such a simple idea, simple concept, but that goes straight to the heart of the viewers, certainly straight to mine.
I think with photography, though, there was a march just went past just outside before, and sometimes I don't know who said this, but said anyone can photograph chaos. Easy to photograph chaos and make a compelling picture. It's very difficult to photograph something small, some very little, and make a compelling photograph out of it. And I suppose it goes full circle to the not wanting to be on my own this time, but my mum died during COVID, not of COVID, but during COVID, and she's buried up on the side of a hill. And I go and sit up there, and the colours in the sky were just out of this world. I thought, I've got to photograph these, just simply document them, because they're wonderful. And there are pictures upstairs which have got no clouds in them. They're the larger pictures, and the pictures that do have clouds in them. It's very difficult to find a situation where there are pictures of with no clouds, when you're just looking off the side of a hill. And yeah, they're the ones, they're special to me, and the other people look at them. Someone came into the exhibition and they were talking about it, they go, oh, look at these pictures, then they liked them, but then they read the piece to the side about them, and they sort of go, oh, right, okay. They've got a different level, a different meaning now. And they were calling the friends over, they said, come and see these pictures, read that and look at the pictures, and you can see them staring into them going, yeah, I like these now. They've just got that extra bit of meaning. Yeah. And that's it. I'm up there. I'm on my own. Sometimes there are other people up there, but it's just me and the camera. Again, it's the complete opposite of walking the streets of London, or where I've just been to Barcelona. It's the complete different. It's just so relaxing being up there. You're sitting and watching nature in front of you, because I suppose when you're sitting in a graveyard, your mortality is brought into question, and it's when you do start thinking about your mortality, you start thinking about the simple things, and the sky. It's such a simple thing, but it's up there, and it's beautiful. Things that you don't look at. I worry about people today that this kid literally had his neck like that, walking to school, looking into his phone. He's not appreciating the world around him. He could be looking at it on his phone, but it's there. It's around you. And that's my moment of contemplation, is sitting up there taking these pictures. But I do love the craziness of going and photographing around a big city.
Of course. So what do you think you're going to be focusing on next?
People. It's I've done my time with large format and architecture. It's just completely different, because sometimes with architecture you've got to, if photographing Deansgate Square, the big picture that's upstairs, I don't think about what I want to see in the picture. You think about what I think the architect might want to see in his or her buildings, and it's the randomness of photographing people is fabulous. Like I said before, it's taking a good photograph of somebody. The thing with shooting film is you can't show them. If I take a photograph, you're just hoping it's going to be good. But if somebody stops you, you can't go, there's your picture. Oh, look good. I always hand out a card out if I take someone's picture. If they see me do it, and I say, get in touch with me. Hope you like it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few images in which you actually get the attention of the subject being photographed, and that's quite an interesting play, an interesting...
Yeah,
it can go wrong or can go...
It's unusual. There are a couple of pictures in there where there's one in particular, the one you're talking about, is in there. I'm going to try and get it up here. I'm going to try. How are we doing for time? We're good. Keep getting electric shocks off this thing. Oh, right, okay, it is. It's working now. All the pictures. No, let's just go for lovers. It's one of my lovers series. There we are. Can we see that? Right. There we are. Full screen. Good. Piccadilly Circus at night. And when, I said before about the Grinch that stole Christmas, you very, very rarely get a chance to stand in front of somebody and you're close to them. In this case, I'm close to them with a camera, and look at them through the viewfinder and go, look at me. Because they're kissing each other. Most people that are kissing are in such a world of their own that they don't notice you with a camera. But the difficult thing is when photographing people kissing is the moments that they'll go kiss. Because if you're on the street, you generally don't snog somebody. It is just a moment, and you've got to be at the right place at the right time. You see it happening 100 yards away, and you're going, missed that picture. Missed it. But here, Piccadilly Circus, at night, busy, I'm there with my camera, and they're into each other. I'm just going, look at me. Look at me. And he just turned his eyes and went click, and that was it. And looks at me. The best thing you can say with documentary photography is thank you. Thank you, and walk. You take one picture, walk. Say thank you, and you're off. Because by the time they've registered that you've taken their photograph and said thank you, you're just far enough away for them to not come and say, did you take my picture? Yeah. Just far enough away. And with that one,
it's a dangerous job.
Yeah, I know. But he did. He just went, click. Oh, thanks for that. But in film, you don't know whether you got it or not. But that's the fun.
Is he filming you?
No, might have been. Yeah, no. Maybe he's doing a talk about me. You know, they were just perfect. And I love the composition of them because everybody else is facing away. Don't know what was happening over there. There's always something happening, Piccadilly Circus. But everyone, you know, the whole row of lads there facing away, and they're there. Love that picture.
Yeah, me too. And going back to the idea of the craft as well, there's also another nice aspect of your practice that has recently maybe developed, is that you started printing your own prints as well. Also, experimenting with a very difficult process that is platinum printing. And in fact, we have one example of that in the show upstairs.
There's only one example of that because it's so difficult to actually get it right. Platinum printing is such a pain. Anybody done platinum printing? Oh, it's such a pain. But when you try and do it, and you realise how hard it is when you go to an exhibition. Yeah. What's the name of the photographer that's done Irving Penn? I've got a book of his platinum prints, and when you actually see a platinum print, because it was at Hamilton's gallery in London, he had a few, and it was a cigarette butt. And it was just a study of a cigarette butt, but it was exquisite, absolutely exquisite. It's just not a silver gelatin print. It was I think it was platinum palladium. But I did the one picture with platinum that's upstairs for a reason, because I think it's got to be one of my favourite photographs. It's this one. Can we see it? That one. That one. That's in platinum upstairs. And I love this picture. I don't know, it's the picture I take to my grave, I think. Because I remember everything about it. I remember the situation. I remember what they said. But this is documentary photography. If you want to photograph people kissing, I stood there. It's not posed. They're just into themselves. And I've got the old Hasselblad, and I'm stood here, and I'm looking at them, and I just go, click. And a Hasselblad makes a thud when it goes off. And he looked at me. The chap that's standing up looked at me. And I said, oh, sorry, do you mind if I take your photograph? And he went, no. And they carried on, and so so I did. But I took a second photograph out of politeness because I knew I had it in the can. I knew I already had the first photograph, but because they knew they were being photographed, the second photograph is just junk. It's rubbish. It looks completely odd. It looks forced. But whereas here they're so relaxed, it looks posed, but it wasn't, and I just love it. So I took it. And they were just into themselves. And as I walked off, took the picture, walked off, I just whispered, thank you, and went. And there's nothing like just being polite to get you away from it. And I think that's what's helped me with, if I'd have tried to do this when I was younger, I don't think I would have had the same, and I got this I got how to deal with people from having a proper job before I became a photographer, and I got this from my mum and dad, and it's dealing with people is the most important thing when you are either in a situation like this or you've got a dancer in front of you. It's, do you go for a relationship first and then photograph, or photograph first then relationship? This is photograph first then relationship, unless you walk off and there's no chatting with them, or there's relationship first. And it's in the case of the dancers, it's getting them to relax. Yeah. Because they don't see the photographs. They need to know that you're taking good photographs.
All right. Well, maybe this is a good time to open up the floor for questions from the audience, if there are any.
Who's got questions about anything?
Do you develop every single shot you do, or do you go by what's on the negative?
Do I print every shot I do? No, I don't print every shot I do, no. I scan everything and look at it on the computer screen. And then, but what I do, you've got to use technology for, for its purposes. So I'll scan everything, I'll look at the pictures on the computer screen, I will then decide which pictures I'm going to print, and then I will print those because it's expensive, isn't it? It's just very, very expensive. And so I'll only print the pictures. But one of the pitfalls of doing that is that I'm still quite young and there's still digital. You go out and you shoot digital, you get to see your pictures now. I go out and shoot a roll of film, I want to see those pictures now still, but I've got to go through the process of developing them. So I develop them, and then I'll scan them, I'll look at the pictures, and I'll choose instantly the pictures that I like. But sometimes you'll look back at your photographs that you took a year ago, you think, oh, actually that one's nice. They grow on you. You just got to, in a way, you've got to take your photographs and just leave them be. Leave them be, and then go and look at them in however long. You've seen them all, but they'll grow on you. Sometimes I find this with music.
Yeah.
If you hear a piece of music that you instantly like, you listen to it and listen to it and listen to it, and after 6 months, you're bored of it and you won't listen to it again. Whereas if something grows on you, you might not like it instantly, but it grows on you and grows on you, and you can listen to it for the rest of your life. And it's exactly the same with photographs.
Do you have a stock film you particularly enjoy using?
I do. If I'm feeling flush, I will use Tri-X, Kodak Tri-X. 400 ASA film. I will, with documentary photography, you need a high shutter speed. So I'll push it to 800 so that I will be able to shoot at a high shutter speed, because you're shooting at f11 all the time. Just I want a massive depth of field. So I want to zone focus, which is what, if I use that's a Hasselblad, but all my other stuff is just used with a Leica. And it's just zone focus. I know that everything, if I focus at 1.5 meters at f11, everything from here to infinity is in focus. So that's why when you're close, you can just walk round and you can just go snap. And everything's in focus, your subject's in focus. So yeah, Tri-X if I'm feeling flush. The fridge is full of it, isn't it, Helen? Lovely. At home, the fridge and freezer's full of film, sorry. And if I'm not feeling flush, I'll just use the Ilford HP5, 400 ASA film. And to be honest, I use Tri-X because if it's good enough for the greats, it's good enough for me. But if you put two of them side by side, you can't tell the difference. You can't tell the difference. It's what's in the photograph, isn't it, that makes the difference.
Robert?
Yes?
I came a couple of weeks ago to have a look at your exhibition upstairs.
Thank you.
I'm not a photographer, but I loved your work and I loved the photographs that was up there. You've got a wall covered in black and white photographs.
Yeah.
And then smack bang in the centre, you've got a coloured one.
Oh, yes.
What's the reason behind that?
Because about 1 in every 20 films I shoot, I'll shoot colour. And it's the Pound Please man with his 2 dogs in Piccadilly Circus is upstairs now. So there's 2 pictures upstairs. And the problem with colour, and you notice in the Pride, because in the wall of pictures from Pride, not a colour photograph. I thought, why don't you see black and white photographs at Pride? Everyone goes for the colour, but you get lost in the colour. You don't see what's happening. I can't remember his name, but Ted, can't remember. But he said, photograph someone in colour, you photograph their clothes, photograph them in black and white, and you photograph their souls. But if you take colour out of a picture, you see, instead of seeing colour, which the brain is instantly attracted to, you see the people in the pictures, you see textures, and you see forms, and you see shapes. I think I'll photograph in colour. Put a colour film in, and it's obvious. If I'm shooting in colour, if I know I've got a colour film in my camera, I find that I'm looking for colours. I'm looking for colourful people. I'm looking for clothes that people are wearing. I'm not concentrating on what's happening, what situation might be developing with a person that I've spotted. So I'm not watching something interesting, I'll be focusing on someone. And every so often, yeah, there's a crazy chap walking two dogs through Piccadilly Circus. But about 1 in 20 films I shoot is colour. There's another reason as well. I can't develop colour film. So if I shoot black and white, just turn the lights off, get it in the can, develop my black and white film. Developing colour film is it's beyond me. It's too many variables developing colour film, and I want my pictures to actually come out. So I don't want to risk making a mess of developing colour film, and it's highly likely that you will. So 1 in 20 colour, and every so often one appears.
It's a big step. You said before you had a proper job. It's
Yes.
a big step from a proper job
Yes.
to something totally different, and to make a living out of it.
Yes. Oh, it's difficult. Luckily, I've got a very supportive wife sitting at the back there who one of the things is young people ask about being an artist and how do you be an artist? And everyone says this, you hear, if you listen to any podcasts, watch any things on YouTube, anyone that's made it and is asked the question, what would you tell a young artist? And you say the single most important thing for an artist to have is a job. To see them through the times when, the difficult times, because there will be, months will go by when you don't sell a picture, and you need to, you still need to pay the bills. And that's the same with any art form, not just photography, any art form. And if there is that thing, the starving artist is there. And yeah, I had a proper job. And it was when I got that proper job that I then could afford to buy the camera. It was a Leica M7. I drove to Whitby to buy it. And that got me back on the train again. And never, not come off it since. It's hard work, but I really, really enjoy it. Got to be, obsessed. It went from hobby to passion to obsession. And I think you've got to be obsessed to, in a few years, go from, I'm very, very lucky to go from where I was to where I am now. And I'm still, bottom of the ladder, really, as far as photographers are concerned. But the great thing about photography is, and you see lots of young people wanting to be photographers, and that's if you watch anything about any successful photographer, they're all old. They are all ancient. They are. Look, if anybody's on TV who's a photographer, Martin Parr is an old man now, because you've got to work and work and work and work and work at it. And it's great because it's something you can keep doing and enjoy.
Can I just ask one thing? I like the term analogue that you used, and I'm just wondering whether, just looking ahead, you talk about old and age and time and all of that. Looking ahead, do you see that possibly this art form, if you like, of actually developing, printing and going through all of that mechanical stuff as well, is going to actually die out in an age of AI and digital, and how that will develop, because it's changed so much in the last 10, 20 years.
It will die out, I think, but will it die out completely? Somebody related this to horses. When horses were on the street, they're talking about it with cars now, aren't they? Yes, talking about it with cars. That now cars, we just have them, we use them, we destroy them, and then we should trade them in, get other cars. But now that cars, when horses were just used on the streets and carts, they were just left on the streets to rot. Whereas now that things have changed and the car took over, horses are now used for the fun things, and people enjoy having horses rather than having them for work. And I think that's the same with digital. Digital has taken over from the horses pulling carts, leaving film for people that actually want to use it. It's not up to us, is it? It's up to the manufacturers of film. Because the machines, if you've seen the machines that make the film, they are massive. It's warehouse-sized machines that are pulling the materials through. And I don't think it'll wear out in my lifetime, which is all that bothers me. However,
Back, Rob, isn't it? So I got rid of all my
this is
records, we called them.
Yeah.
But they're the back of the vinyls.
But there we go. You talk about that, but to people that have always had and loved their record collections, they never went away. So
They've come back.
they've come back to more people. Yeah,
Exactly.
More people are realising
They're
them.
called
So,
vinyls now.
Yes.
Don't call them records now.
anything else?
The pictures of the seascape
Yes.
and the pictures of street work, are you influenced by Lowry at all? His work, he did the same, he did the seascapes.
He did, didn't he? And
You,
I know a Lowry dealer in Hale called Bill Clark, and I've seen so many Lowrys, and it's very pleasing, because you think, as an artist, you think, I should focus on one thing. I should photograph on just photographing people and just concentrate on that, concentrate. But if you look at artists, Lowry, hey, we're in Manchester, street scenes, people in the streets, his lonely seascapes, his lonely landscapes. So he did his lonely landscapes up, like painting farms and things, didn't he?
that's the first thing I thought when I saw your...
It actually gives me hope, because sometimes you think I should be focusing on one thing, just on one thing, but no, just spread it about a bit. So I know what you're saying there, because he had his lonely landscapes, which are lots of farmhouses. Where did he go to? He used to go to the northeast as well, didn't he, and paint ships. Yeah, Sunderland in the northeast, paint ships coming in and out. And he just used to have a horizon, and he'd just do wiggly lines. Yeah, they are actually my favourite Lowry's, his seascapes.
Rob, who, just leading on from that then, which photographers do inspire you or have inspired you in your journey?
It's a difficult one, that, but I think that's why I started photographing people quite late on, because quite late, I mean, I've always photographed people on the streets, but thought, right, this is it. And it's when I discovered American photographer Gary Winogrand. And I'd seen, you can't, if you follow photography, you see street photography everywhere. And it was only when I saw his work, I thought, this is it. His pictures have just got so much life in them and so much going on, not just in the individual that he's concentrated on, but in the background. There's so much, it's all layers upon layers upon layers. And it was when I found him, I thought, right, this is where I need to go. But there are all the others. There are the Cartier-Bresson. You know, you look at his pictures and you go, he to me is sort of like the Beatles, in that he started it, and that group of people started it. Thank you very much. I don't really like the Beatles, but I understand what he was doing. And yeah, that's it. But Winogrand, Gary Winogrand, saw his photographs, and it really was a eyes wide open moment. I'd have one of his pictures on my wall, and on another completely blank wall, I would have a Hiroshi Sugimoto seascape. Don't care what it is, I would have a Sugimoto seascape on a completely blank wall. He's got an exhibition at the Haywood in London at the moment. Not been to see it yet, but I'm expecting to just go and stand there in front of his work and just lose myself in it. But yes, so those two people. Brett Rogers of the Photographers Gallery fame stood in front of one of them, and Stefan was there at Amsterdam, had one of my seascapes. And she said, I didn't know who Brett Rogers was. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Brett. She's been a photographer's gallery in London, amazing place. And she'd been director of it for forever, hadn't she? Like, sort of decades, 10, whatever, years and years. And, but yeah, she stopped. But she stood in front of one of my pictures, and she went, So it's like a Hiroshi Sugimoto, this, but better, and walked off. And I thought, what? I know what. And Stefan over there is my London gallery director, and he walked up to me and said, "Did you know who that was?" And I went, no, he said, director of the Photographers Gallery in London. And I went, oh, okay. And I didn't ask her, I didn't say, can I quote you on that? So I would never actually write that down. But Hiroshi Sugimoto and Gary Winogrand, they are two heroes. Oh, and Bruce Davidson. Bruce Davidson, if you like photography, find a book called Subway. If you like any kind of candid photography, look for a book called Subway. Sometimes I go out and I think, this is a bit scary what I'm doing here. He was photographing people on film, having to use flash, because he was probably using Kodachrome 64 and things like that, on the subways and not in the nice parts of town in New York. And the pictures that he were coming out with, they're mind-blowing, to think that he put himself in that situation to take those photographs when he couldn't show someone the back of a camera. He actually had a little wedding album book made with his photographs in it. But if you read the book, he used to go with a penknife down his sock, things to maybe have to defend himself with. Google it, there'll be loads of pictures from this book called Subway on the internet. Look at them and just go, all right, if you're on the streets, you've not got it hard now. He had it hard in the 70s and 80s on the subway in Harlem, all around Queens, and the people that he's photographing holding guns as if he was... that's one of the things. I look at one of my pictures and I go, is this okay? And I'll just get this book out and I'll look at it and go, no, it's not, because they are fabulous. So yes.
All right.
Should we go and have a look at the pictures upstairs?
Yes, do that.
So, yeah.
Fantastic. Let's go all together.
That was very well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, we'll go and walk round upstairs, and anybody's got any questions about any of the individual pictures, just grab me. But just wander around. There's some refreshments upstairs. Come and see, and there's actually somebody here who's in one of the photographs upstairs. One of the rarest things with documentary photography is meeting again somebody that you've taken the photograph of previously. But it happened. See you upstairs.